Yes, sir. Yeah. Hey. Day in, day out, had to clock in before I knocked out 12-hour shift. But shit still ain't shit, yeah, I'm on a mission. This a nigga tripping out, moving slowly, some still moving. Couldn't give a fuck what they doing, I just gotta focus. Don't got time to know this balance in the show. The past life probably was a soldier. Chain smoking these blunt smoking 8 for lunch. I deserve one shot. Aiming like me in the parking lot, shit knocking like me in the speaker box. That day be, hope I plant seeds of prosperity. It's in my genes, got the vaccine. I advise you take heed to your motherfucking dreams, cause not much else matters in this world. Fuck around and get your life took. Souls on the hook, ain't a good look for your spirit. Wonder why time disappearing. You got lost somewhere in the current. Can't be caring about the outcome. God gave a nigga visions, gotta live it out, son. Fire forever. Yeah. I've been fighting forever. We want this forever. Yeah. My spirit forever. Breathing myself down in the lake. Around, floating and flowing. Propagating my pace out in the waves. Manifest my worth. With a melanin activated, you might need some help. Planetary voice from the void, boy, you might need some else. From the dreams to earth, don't tell you see forever. But you lost from one take, blue flame that will help. Keep the voice warrior in you. Bit of boy from realms higher than this ancient hell. Hollywood casting spells, and time hit one tell. With the lines stuck in jail, and forever well. I've been crying, have mercy. My feet get still working. I see me just passing. Back and forth on the interstate, trying to fit a lifetime in a day. Niggas still working. Sorry, baby, this ain't for the Birkin. Messy women wanna stay lurking. Can't knock me off my purpose. I know nothing left forever, but I'm on a path to build something that's worth it. Digging deeper like a brain surgeon. Operating off a passion, yeah, I got the magic. Shit don't seem logical, but it's possible. I got dreams and I see the obstacles, but I got it though. Can't stay here, gotta go. Spaceship, fast vertical. I just stayed down till I came round. Gold, only here to try your sound. How it's growing. Fire forever. Yeah. I've been fighting forever. We focus forever. My spirit forever.
All right, what up? What up? What up? What up? What up? It's your boy Dave B. Watching Davebeyondtv, where we go beyond the everyday bullshit that people be consuming on a day-to-day basis. Today we breaking down some astrology. You know what I'm saying? The moon has slid into Sagittarius, and you know we already know we in Scorpio season. So what does that actually mean energetically? How are we going to be responding and reacting to this? Well, that's what we're going to get into. So for the most part, you know, moon in Sagittarius, that's all about expansion of feelings, but the way we're expanding on feelings is in a very deep way, and what we're expanding on is more so what's going on inside. So being that we're in Scorpio season, what's on our focus as far as like what we're paying attention to and things of that matter are things that are kind of beneath the surface. So these might be more vulnerable topics than normal. So here's a dynamic where, you know, on a lower octave end, or let's talk about the higher octave end. On the high octave end, it's going to be more feelings of optimism. That's the word I was looking for. Optimism. You know what I'm saying? That's what Sagittarius brings. It kind of brings that mutable fire, which is like a flexible light, if you will, a light that can shine in many different directions at one time. So this is where you can, you know, again, especially coming off the new moon, you might have had very serious thought forms or very dramatic thought forms, extreme thought forms that might have took you down to the depths of what you was actually trying to get to. And you know, being that we're in the new moon phase, right, waxing phase very early on, there's a good chance that you might have had to challenge a lot of the things on your mind currently that you might have been experiencing. Even though like the new moon is all for planting good, you know, planting new seeds, with that newness comes a very kind of a naked feeling. You know what I'm saying? You might feel naked, unequipped to actually reach the goals that you have on your mind and things like that. That can make you feel very intimidated to maybe some of the goals that you're trying to reach and things like that. But here comes Sagittarius with a good boost of optimism to make you look at maybe the brighter potential of what you could rise to the occasion to do. You know what I'm saying? Sagittarius is that bow and arrow that's shooting upward. But I oftentimes talk about how Sagittarius energy can bring a lot of an equal amount of doubt just as much as they have inspiration. So, what you don't know about your Sagittarius friends is that on their on days when you see them in your face, they're gonna be very jovial and happy and like, hey, what I'm saying, like kind of like the jokesters, if you will. But when they go into their own energy and they, separate from their friends, or just normally usually this is what Sagittarius deal with. The real side of Sagittarius, if you ever get real close to them, you'll realize they're a lot more deep and maybe even emotionally affected to things than they come off. You know what I'm saying? So their energy up front might seem like, yeah, it's all good, but deep down inside, you know what I'm saying, how they say that, the tears of a clown. So they might be the jokester and the one with all the jokes, but deep down within that is a lot of very serious feelings that might make the, again, they more so keep that to themselves and deal with that on their own, because they know how heavy it gets, and so they try to come around other people and bring that light, bring that inspiration and things like that. Now when we talk about this in terms of the energy we may be feeling, what I'm saying, um you said having problems finding work after 200 plus job applications and still getting nothing this year is not lining up for me, unfortunately. Well, I'm gonna tell you like this: the old ways of going about jobs and occupations and things like that is out the window. We in the certain, like the times we in now, you have to create your own job. Again, there's many different ways we can kind of tap into that. Just looking into just how society is going and things like that. Old ways of going about getting a job and getting on your 2 feet are not going to be, they're basically obsolete at this moment. But this is early stages, so there might be some small signs that you can still kind of do the old traditional ways of going about that. But just to be real, that's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? You said what's going on. Well, we're breaking down some astrology, so just sit tight and enjoy the ride. That's all I can really tell you. So getting into what I was talking about, so the moon in Sagittarius, so like I said before, expanding. So in the title I put expanding on our deep desires or escaping from them. So I talked a little bit about the positive higher octave aspect of this energy, where we're able to now expand our minds a little bit further than what might have intimidated us when we set our new moon intentions, when we looked at what we actually want to achieve moving forward. And also like the time just switched to where it's what daylight savings, where now it's getting darker a lot faster and things like that. He said, I'm 11, can I still watch? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, it's up to you. But for the most part, when we talk about, daylight savings, the importance of that, or just what the relevance of why I brought that up, is because uh, you know, again, a lot of times when we're understanding energetic influences, we just look at the we can understand how things influence us based upon nature and things like that. So, how it's getting darker faster, there might be a certain pressure we feel to kind of gather things together, or again, being in the dark, going through a time or a season in which, the darkness is more so the emphasis. Remember, when we hit that middle point of the year, when we hit past the equinox, then that's when now we're on the night side of the zodiac. We're experiencing more of the darker aspects, or the below the horizon energies, like Libra through Pisces, right? Where in the spring and summertime, the emphasis was more so on expression, outward, being in the mix and kind of expressing ourselves. During this time, we're forced to deal with more of the inner workings of what's going on. So dealing with kind of our feelings, and maybe how we're reacting and responding to different things that we're going through, you know what I'm saying? But things that might not be the first thing that we share with another person, or if we do share it with another person, it's stuff that we hold close to us, stuff that's more intimate. So how we navigate these times are a lot different than the spring and summertime. So moving forward with that, like I was saying, the high octave of the moon being in Sagittarius currently and the sun being in Scorpio is, again, feelings that help us expand and be a little more optimistic about the deep things that we're approaching. Scorpio deals with deep passions. So the things beneath the surface that Nobody else is really meant to understand but you know what I'm saying, your burning desire, what gets you up out the bed. Everybody, when they wake up, especially during the cold seasons, the first thing you want to do when you wake up probably is turn that alarm off and what I'm saying, put covers on, hold the covers and stay where you at. But the thing is, what will get you out the bed is what you really want to accomplish in life. The things that are, again, you have a job that you probably don't like, but what you finna use that money to do when you get off work or for the weekend is what still makes you clock in even when you don't want to. Or same thing even for school. You know what I'm saying? If you're younger, you're going to school, at those times you might not even have a deep passion yet or know what you want to do. But again, it's good to try to actually have something to look forward to and direct your energy towards, especially if you're young, because there's a lot of you already have a lot of energy and you have a lot of opportunity and things ahead of you. So you want to direct those things as early as possible towards something that could be beneficial to you later on in life. A lot of individuals not thinking about that at that age, and again, the pressure is not there as compared to somebody who's older and they, in their 20s and going through some of the more adult aspects of life and things like that. But for the most part, again, it's all the same thing. Even when you're going to school, even if you're in college, especially if you're in college, you're in that age where you still have enough time to gather your ideas and direct them towards something productive. And again, even if you older, however old you are, it really is a universal principle. There should be something that you look at as a purpose that's you know, driving you and moving you forward. Um, and so, just to clear things up, this is about energetic influences. So, feelings, but also thoughts. Again, I could tell you're new to the channel, so I'll explain it like I don't know. You might have to follow along and maybe watch earlier videos to kind of get caught up on things as far as how these things affect you. But this is talking about astrology. So astrology influences us by giving us energy frequencies. You know what I'm saying? So based upon the different energies going on in the sky, and depending on your own personal natal chart, you might respond to these energies different ways. So it's kind of about feeling, but it is a little deeper than that. But again, to keep it simple, yeah, it's basically about feelings, vibes. But remember that, or something to keep in mind, is that you are the one who creates your own feelings and you create your own thoughts. So a lot of times it's kind of complicated. I don't want to rush over this because this is like very important to understand. But basically, the thoughts and feelings that you have, these things are not necessarily yours. You receive these things, right? So when you receive a thought or feeling, you have to decide for yourself whether or not you resonate with that, aka do you want to add more to that feeling or add more to that thought, or is that thought and feeling something that you don't want to add to your life? So if you get a bunch of negative feelings, you don't have to just agree with the feelings you receive. You can choose to change how you feel, right? It's easier said than done, but that is kind of the first steps as to kind of taking your power back. A lot of times we grow up and we assume that because we feel a certain way, especially with people around us, we assume that just because we feel a certain way, we have to take that feeling as our own. And that's not always the case. A lot of times we might feel a certain way, but it's still our responsibility to learn how to receive, but then also decide what we want to feel and push that out instead, and not just go along with what is thrown at us. Because if you do that, what'll happen is you'll be led towards different things like depression. You'll be led towards trying to find something externally to kind of make you feel better. And that's kind of how you get down a destructive path where you start to use things like maybe drugs or just the more dramatic things about life, the things that people kind of cling on to, people who end up getting addicted to cigarettes or addicted to other substances. That's usually what happens. They get feelings and they don't know how to control them. They don't know how to deal with them and change their mind on what they want to feel. And so they use substances to give them a better feeling. And so they think they feel good, but it's only temporary. And over time they develop a habit, and that habit can kind of destroy them in the long run. You know what I'm saying? But moving forward, so moon in Sagittarius. So when we're going through the moon in Sagittarius, like I said before, high octave, yeah, optimism about where our passions can lead. So there might be very big things we want to accomplish, and we might not know where to start. The new moon is always kind of bringing that fresh new vibe where we're at ground zero. And again, that can be intimidating, especially when you start to think about all the things that you'll have to do to get to a point to be satisfied with what you want. But the thing about it is you got to look at it as something to take day by day, step by step, right? Now the moon in Sagittarius has the opportunity to give us that optimism, or on the lower octave of the energy, it can make us want to escape based upon the pressure to live up to that role and expectation. So when we're looking at that energy, it's like, again, the negative aspects can make us feel like, damn, okay, maybe I want to run away from what this energy is demanding of me. Maybe I want to, you might be questioning a little bit more, and see the Sagittarius energy will make you kind of dismiss things, kind of be like, well, I just want to have fun instead, or I just want to do this instead. So let's say, the new moon in Scorpio that we just had was all about releasing and letting go of things. So depending on what your plans were and what you're setting your mind to do, you need to make sure you're staying committed to the things that you agreed to let go of. So all the things that you agreed that you was going to let go of and transform in your life, it's up to you to decide to. It's like you still have to remember during the waxing period, it's your responsibility to keep up with that energy and fulfill that cup. So you have to fulfill that cup with the feelings that you want to feel, the experiences that you want to experience. So when we're going through a time like this, Sagittarius could give you different thoughts and ideas to make you say, well, I'll just take another day off, or I'll just slack up on that, because you might feel the pressure of living up to that expectation that you set for yourself. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully you living for your own expectations and not the expectations of others. That's key. But that kind of goes into the greater, concept of just knowing yourself and knowing where you're going in life and leading that way. Again, you have to be the example of what you want to see in your life. You can't expect somebody to kind of hold your hand through the process. Even the people even people who care the most about you can't really do the work for you. That's just something you got to keep in mind. So when you're going about that process, you have to get up and make the choice, make the decision to do the things that are going to get you where you want to go. And sometimes we don't know what those things are, but the truth is, deep down inside, you do know. It just might not be the first thing you want to do. And so you have to kind of have that discipline to choose the things that you know are right to do to get where you want to go. Right? Not trying to talk in too many loops, but it's kind of one of those things where you have to remind yourself on the path, whatever path you have, whatever mission and goal you have. It's the same thing as how the planets revolve around how the planets revolve around things. What I'm saying? It's like an orbit. And when you have a goal, you're creating a world. And basically the different experiences, excuse me, the different experiences you're going through, right? As you're orbiting that goal you have, that world you're creating, it's your responsibility to kind of keep it in reference, keep it in mind. So as you're traveling through different spaces, that's still the point that you're directing your energy to. If y'all get what I'm saying. Like if you think of your goals as like, again, a planet you're creating, and then you as a spirit, you're orbiting that. And every space you go to, you're giving energy back to that middle point. So, again, this kind of in as you're going through different travels, you add new things that you can. It's like you go through new experiences that help you add to what you're building on, right? Now, getting back just to the astrology and things like that. So the moon is in Sagittarius, and we have Mercury going into Sagittarius. So, one thing about, I am going to do a separate live on Mercury and Sagittarius, but just as a rundown as it relates to the moon. Now we have the moon and Mercury in the same aspect. So the Mercury is how we think, how we communicate. Mercury in Sagittarius represents an expansion of how we think. Now, Mercury isn't home; it's away in Sagittarius, right? So it's not in its normal place, aka Gemini or Virgo. It's in Sag. So it's in a Jupiterian sign. So what might help right now with communication is using allegories or things like that to help relate or convey ideas and messages. People might not want to take information if it's just laid out flat. Dry communication, people might not be as responsive to that. So, let's say whatever you do, you want to make sure that if you're trying to convey an idea and you want people to kind of understand your logic, you might have to paint an imagination or a picture to help them connect with it. People more so right now are going to be more enthused or captured or willing to listen to somebody who is at least painting some kind of creative picture or using figurative language to describe what it is that they do or what they want to, their message in general. So this is good for people who got a business or something like that. If you got a business or you got a brand and you're posting yourself online, you might get more engagement if you are trying to, if you're finding creative ways basically to explain your deals or explain what you do, or if you could find some way to relate it to an allegory or some kind of story like that. Um, Something to keep in mind too is that Mercury will be going retrograde later on in the month. So there's this kind of idea that what we're building on mentally is the expansion of the mind. So, your familiar thought patterns and things like this is an opportunity for you to kind of maybe see beyond what you thought, what your common thoughts are, or your traditional ways of going about thinking and communicating. This might be a time where you want to expand how you go about that, expand, maybe try communicating a little differently. Especially if you've been getting a certain result that you don't want and you want to kind of switch that up, then right now you can start to be like, okay, let me add new things to my vocabulary. Let me try new angles as far as how I go about communicating. Um, but with the moon conjuncting Mercury being right close to each other, this is helping us feel more comfortable about the things on our mind. So again, this is another aspect that's kind of helping with the new moon energy. So let's say, hopefully the theme of this new moon is really about transformation. And we're leading up into a full moon in Taurus. So the full moon being in Taurus is going to conjunct Uranus. So Uranus is the planet of uniqueness, individuality, right? And Taurus is the space or the energy of stability, security, and value. So this whole transition, this moon cycle, right, leading up into the full moon, is about transforming yourself to be more receptive or able to hold your own, like what you value. Basically you're transforming yourself to look more like what you value in a sense. So that's kind of how you want to be thinking about this process and this journey. The different things, like the new moon was you coming to a conclusion. You know what, I have to transform this, right? Chances are you came to some conclusions, whether you did or not. There are certain things that were presented to you that showed you, hey, the current way you're going about things requires a certain, it requires you to let go of things that might be what you're holding on to as far as an emotional bias that's making you look at life a certain way, or making you, holding you down. It's like sometimes one thing about Scorpio that I talk about a lot is, this concept of being at war with yourself. So being that, whatever you're at war with yourself about, this could be creating a certain aura or energy that you carry around that other people can sense, that makes it difficult for you to move on with your life. So there might be a direction you're trying to go in life, but you can't quite get through that door because what you're carrying is way too heavy. Even if it seems like I'm fine and I don't have to change nothing. We always going through changes, and there's chances are you're holding on to some kind of bias that's affecting your perspective. Because one thing about emotional biases, when we're stuck in a feeling, when we're holding a grudge, it's by default manipulating your own perspective. It's like whatever we're carrying on us emotionally, it affects how we think. It affects this because remember that the emotions that we're in, the emotional space we in, is literally a space. And so think about you sitting in your room. Depending on where you're standing in your room, it's going to affect how you see the room. And what you're looking at is going to affect what you're thinking. So you could be standing, by the door. If I'm standing in the corner, there's a certain view I got of the room, which is going to derive certain thoughts, right? But now if I switch that view and go from, what I'm saying, the other side of the room, now I have a different perspective of the room. So think of emotions as the space you in within that room, and then from that space it affects what you can see, what you're consciously aware of. Now a lot of times people walk around and they're not aware of the space they in, so they lack perspective. So they come up with, the way they approach certain situations, it's almost like they might not be seeing the full picture or looking at it in a way that helps, helps and contributes to what they're trying to actually achieve, you know what I'm saying, if that makes sense. So, we got to keep that in mind. So, energetically, what's on our heart and what we might be feeling can be affecting how we're seeing something. And we might not see the full picture and the full spectrum because of how we feel, because of what we might have been hurt by that made us feel vulnerable. And the thing about it is, when we're in that vulnerability, we might not be looking at the situation from a clear enough perspective to see all the opportunities available to kind of step in. It's not until you kind of able to step outside of that, to let go of that bias, that you're able to maybe have a full 360 of the room to be able to see the full spectrum. And now you're getting thoughts the way you receive thoughts at that point of being light and free of any emotional bias. It's like you have a lot more to work with. And that's the whole thing about, even dealing with Scorpio energy, because Scorpio deals with sacrifice, but also scarcity, investment, and things like that. So, you might not see as many options as actually available if you're locked into only one feeling or one bias. What I'm saying? This what makes a lot of people kind of fall into depression. A lot of times depression is a perspective issue, because you're stuck in that feeling. It's keeping you slow and sluggish and unable to see other options and other things going on in your world. And again, when you're locked into a certain way of seeing things, it's hard to change. It's not easy to do, but uh once you start to add more movement, it gets easier the more you do it. So, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, especially if you feel stuck right now in life, everybody, for the most part, probably feels a little bit of pressure on, their ability to move and things like that, because this is a fixed energy. It's very stuck. But one thing about, Scorpio that everybody got to understand, as far as especially people with Scorpio energy, being that it's fixed water, is like, think about that. Like, the next energy is mutable, but in that process of being fixed water by nature is supposed to be flowing and moving. Fixed water, a lot of people might associate it with ice, but fixed water is the same thing as like a swamp. When water can't flow, it holds contaminants. So think about that in general. You in your own life, when you got stuck emotions and you can't let go of things, that stops the flow of something that's supposed to keep flowing. When water is able to flow consistently, it cleans itself. It's able to cleanse itself, and you know boom, what I'm saying? That's how you have a lot of these, what, a river, a lake, all these other things. I actually, not even a lake. I think a lake sometimes is still, but more, correlating to the point, a swamp, where you see a lot of nasty, things developing, algae and all that stuff. You got the images of a swamp that comes from water being stuck. Water not moving a lot. It's just stuck in one area. And so over time, that water contains a lot of, contaminants. Same thing even with ice. That's why they tell you, like, if you're trying to get over a cold, you need hot fluids and things like that. Because when you got hot fluids and things is heated up, the more hot it is, the more fast things are moving as far as molecules into that liquid. But when liquid is cold, the colder it is, the slower those molecules are. So they're stuck. So anything that, if you want to cleanse water, they tell you to boil it, because that boiling of the water is what kind of keeps it flowing to eliminate some of the bacteria and things like that inside of it. Yo, what's up? What's up? So, moving forward, that's kind of what we're dealing with Scorpio energy. It's like Scorpio is fixated, but we have to learn how to let things go. This whole new moon cycle going into the full moon is a matter of us learning how to let go of things, so we can make space for the things that we actually value. And that's what, at the full moon point, where we're in Taurus, that's what we're going to want to stabilize on. We want to be satisfied with the stability behind our individuality, aka that Uranus energy that's going to be conjuncting it. But getting into the moon being in Sagittarius. So the moon in Sagittarius, like I said before, it's next to Mercury, but it's also next to Venus. So we have the kind of like a superpower right now. The moon is our emotional state. It has the ability to not only be comfortable with how we think and what's on our mind and maybe what we want to communicate about, but it also has the ability to make us feel more comfortable with relating. Love matters. Trying to kind of bring harmony to different things. So appreciation, we have the opportunity to feel more appreciated at the moment. feel more comfortable with our level of support, that we have. Or if you don't feel comfortable about what you have as support, this could lead you to do certain things as far as desperately trying to go get it. So Venus in Sagittarius, again, is the expansion of Venus type things, the expansion of love, what we love, appreciate, and value. But one thing about Venus in Sagittarius, it can try to overcompensate pleasure with progress, overcompensate what it is unable to achieve as far as progress or other things with pleasure. So you might find yourself again indulging in escapism, especially if that escapism is being triggered by, you know, kind of dealing with more so the reality of life and things like that. That's something we kind of got to be aware of right now. You know what I'm saying? Venus in Sagittarius. The thing about Sagittarius is it wants to go to the extreme, and it's kind of like the king and queen of escapism. So you have to kind of look in your own life and see where you might be playing out energies of trying to escape things. Right now we have to really stay focused and concentrated on kind of the bigger idea or picture of what we actually want to achieve. Because right now it's this whole year, especially I think it was what after it might have been like after Leo season or something like that. There was a big emphasis on, or actually it was whenever Saturn went retrograde, there was a big emphasis on escapism, just because reality, we was already feeling the effects of things changing, but reality, especially, reality, Saturn, the planet of reality, already being in Pisces, the space or the energy of illusions and imagination. We already was kind of trying to build on clouds. We was trying to build castles on clouds and things like that. But you know being that energy went retrograde, it's kind of showing us how that's still not working in our life. You know what I'm saying? It's like showing us that we still not quite there yet to be able to fully experience everything that we dream. So the choice is now presented to you. Do you want to put in the work and effort to build a life you don't have to escape from? Or are you going to just succumb to it and say, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to just enjoy my escapism, I'm just going to settle for what instant gratification I can get now at the expense of what I really want to experience. And social media don't make it any better dealing with stuff like that, because all social media does is give you very, abundant short form, basically like supplements of what we really want to build and things like that. Very, it's kind of like what they say, like a donkey with a carrot on a string and stuff like that, where everybody, the common human being, is basically being strung along by very small, hits of dopamine to keep them hooked. But ain't nothing really being accomplished on these social media sites and things like that. It's not until you start looking at it as commercial media that you can start taking advantage of what they created as a system, because that's all it is. All these apps and things like that, they're just systems. And so you need to figure out what you're using these systems for, so that they're not using you. And using you is like draining you. Basically, you can't stop scrolling. You can't stop wasting time on this app or that app, instead of, having a set amount of time you're able to take and put into things that you want to develop, like your craft, right? There's a lot of people with a lot of creative talents, but being that they so stuck on these sites, these apps and things like that, they can't actually invest the time necessary to get better at what it is they claim to love to do. You know what I'm saying? And again, this happens so subtly, you might not even realize. A lot of times you just think, oh, I'm just on uh, Instagram, or I'm just on Twitter and things like that. I'm just on TikTok. But even if you're trying to use these apps to, promote your stuff, still, if you're consuming a lot more than you're producing, you have to kind of look at yourself and ask, like, okay, what's really going on here? Because we living in a time where consumption is abundant and production kind of gets put to the side. As far as the common individual, most people go about their life and they do a lot more consuming than they do producing. And I think this is kind of one of the first times, and again, I don't know for accurately, but from what I can observe, it seems like one of the first times in history where that is so readily available. There's so many ways you can consume content. There's so many ways you can, what I'm saying, before, back in the day and stuff like that, you had to, even if you was to read a book or something like that, it was something you got out of reading a book that added to, you know, information and things like that that you can kind of translate and put into another medium, because it was words on a paper that either inspired you to write, or, you still had a fair amount of going out in life and experiencing things that, because one thing about, when they say like the importance of like going outside, like the real essence behind it is, what matters in life and what really impacts things is how you express yourself and how you do what you do, right? And do what you do, that's a way I'm saying of like, how you impact people, how you influence people, the relationships you build and the experiences you have. A lot of times, like nowadays, you have a situation where 98% of people's experiences is on a phone. You know what I'm saying? So it's not even an experience. People aren't going outside, aka people are scrolling and observing other people's ideas and experiences rather than building and having experiences of their own. So this leads to people who go a large amount of time without really doing shit. You know what I'm saying? And everything is, it's weird too. It's almost like this bubble where nowadays, even if you do go outside, chances are you're not really even engaging or interacting with people in the same way that is impactful, in a way that's impactful. So you're not really, so it's like a bubble in which you still not even experiencing life if all you do is kind of the basic, just go to work, go outside, and kind of go to the common places. It's like we have to kind of work a little bit harder to get out of that little bubble and actually do what we say we want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like go out and experience, see something new for a change and things like that. But because it's like you could just, your version of going outside might just be going to the store or going here, going there. But how many people did you really talk to in that trip? Did you talk to people? Did you learn something new? Did you go somewhere you haven't been before? Things like that. And it's kind of weird. It's almost like, being that we can consume so much, it's the same way as like if you would imagine a person who overeats. It's like you get bloated and you get stuck and you get heavy. So people are backed up and they don't have enough outlets to let certain things out, aka express themselves. And like I said before, if your day, your whole day is consumed with scrolling, and you're not developing a craft, or you're not finding ways that you can express yourself through different creative mediums and stuff like that. And I'm not saying everybody got to be a rapper. I'm not saying everybody got to be a painter or something like that. But the thing is, the more and more you're digesting a bunch of content but not having healthy filters, even down to journaling, again, finding some way to get your thoughts and ideas and expressions out and practice the art of that. That's kind of something that's it's, in my opinion, very important. you know but yeah. But moving forward, the Venus and Sagittarius can kind of make it extreme as far as how hard we go for the things that we like or find pleasure in, the things we appreciate and the things we value. Again, on a high octave end of this energy, this could be great for being supportive or getting support based upon um, it's kind of a couple different ways. With Venus, it could be an appreciation of travel or being supported through travel. So finding, again, if you vlog or something like that, finding new things, going new places and vlogging yourself there, that could be a good idea. Fresh experiences like that, or getting support for what you know. So sharing what you know, learning new things to be able to expand on and add to other people's information, that could be supported as well. um but the negative aspect, the lower octave of Venus and Sag, is an overindulgence on things that keep you kind of in that escapism mode, things that make you want to run away from things. um and that Venus is square in Saturn, so there's a lot to learn as far as what we appreciate, but also what's necessary to expand on for the sake of building something stable. Again, don't lose sight of the bigger picture. So you know Venus and Sagittarius could be the first one to spend all their money on the wrong things. So remember what you're trying to invest in. Or remember, like, oh wait, there's actually a dream that could use this money rather than uh this other thing that I'm trying to use my money for. What I'm saying? You might have a habit of um spending money on shoes and things and clothes, but you also got these dreams you're trying to build and things that you really should be investing in that can help you kind of move forward in reality. So you might have certain bills that need to get taken care of, or again, investing in certain equipment to help you practice your craft. So what you're going to choose? You're going to choose the thing that helps you escape, aka the clothing and whatever you want. That's kind of short form gratification, or are you going to invest that money, or that will, invest more value into something that's going to be substantial and build upon what you really want to experience? That's kind of up to you. But overall, appreciating the experience in general is going to be it's kind of part of the mix. Um, Now, when we look at the moon is currently, let's see what we're going to talk about next. So the moon is opposite Jupiter, so we might feel a little uncomfortable about our experiences in general still. So there's optimism on our mind, but we still very clear on kind of the reality of the situation. Everybody's probably in a reality that they kind of questioning right now. They're not really sure the meaning or reasoning of maybe the things you're going through, but at the same time you still have a little bit more optimism as to, okay, yeah, I might not understand everything that's going on, but I know that it's going to work out, or I believe it's going to work out. One key component too about the moon in Sagittarius is faith. Faith in what we believe in. So this could be a reconnection of faith or a over reliance on faith. You want to kind of feel it out and decide for yourself kind of where you at on the spectrum. Having too much faith is going to be you kind of again on some la la land shit, and you kind of looking and assuming. It's almost like one thing you got to keep in mind is like if you're using faith to avoid feeling the pressure of kind of your responsibilities, you might not be using it for the right things. See, faith isn't meant to substitute your work. Faith isn't even meant to make you feel better about work. Faith is more so about supporting what you're already putting effort towards. That's something that very important to keep in mind. So how they say you can't have faith without the work. So faith isn't supposed to make you feel less anxiety about working or what you have to do in your responsibilities and whether or not it's going to work out or not. That's why traditional religion teaches you, pray your problems away, basically. And that's kind of the wrong ideology. You have to look at faith as something that you do alongside. It's almost like have more faith in the work you do than just the idea or concept of I'm gonna make it one day. It's like you really don't need to, what I'm saying? Like on some real stuff. Shout out to the Hanged Empress up in here. Shout out to all the ladies on the divine depth of divine feminine. Y'all need to tap into their classes. Man, they kicking some real stuff over there. Please, please, please check that out. But yeah, that's one thing you got to keep in mind with when it comes to faith and things like that. It's like so with all this energy, because we got kind of like a mini stellium in Sagittarius. So, there's a lot of, especially with Mercury there. So, Mercury might put faith on your mind, and you might use faith to kind of avoid and escape. Just again, everybody wakes up and has certain things on their mind that might bring anxiety. Again, anxiety is kind of on the other end. Anxiety is associated with Mercury, and faith and things like that is associated with Jupiter. So a lot of times people take faith and want to pray for they want to pray to fill in the gap of the work they're not doing. But really, these two energies need to be working alongside each other. And I think especially now where you have Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, which is Jupiter in a Mercury sign, and then you have Mercury in a Jupiterian sign. This is a kind of a beautiful balance that can be established based upon understanding, like, getting more in touch with your own connection to, oh, my work must be, it's like work first and then pray. Like, honestly, if you was going to use the word pray, because I stay away from that word for the most part, or use it in a different context. But if you was going to use the word prayer or understand it better, it's like work first, then pray. You know what I'm saying? Pray about the work that you already did. So use faith as a kind of like alongside the work to kind of make it mean something more. You know what I'm saying? Have faith that the work that you do is going to actually achieve the results that you're looking for. and that'll help you stay balanced during this time. But see, even in that, is it's a beautiful time right now to invest as much energy as you can into putting effort towards change and really growing. You know what I'm saying? Right now is the time where, like I was saying before in earlier lives, that this is about the shift going on. This is a long, very stretched out shift. And that shift is all about maturing, being a more mature spirit. And so that means approaching things that might have presented themselves as issues in the past, approaching them with a lot more maturity. And being mature is just more so, it's like concepts of, respond, don't react. So your first reaction might be panic mode, survival mode. Let me go just rush and do the first thing that I can think of, just so I don't have to deal with the heavy feelings, just so I don't have to take responsibility or accountability for what I didn't do or what I'm scared to do. But right here, we have to slow everything down and we have to approach it with a much more level head. We have to look at these different things as, hey, if this is what I really want, I need to step into this role and manage it with the proper, with a calm. I have to regulate my nervous system, and I need to walk into that space and handle what needs to be handled rather than, you know, going off impulse and just jumping off the cliff and then blaming others for what may or may not have worked out for me and things like that. So, and then also any concept of using things as a scapegoat is also out the window. So, right now, like I was telling an old dude earlier in the live about work right now, like society is changing. We in a whole new game. And so it's this is gonna separate the haves to the have nots. This is going to separate people. This is going to be a very fine line in society between those who took their life serious enough to put the pieces together and those who, again, just chose to let it go because they assume that someone would come save them, or they assume that it might not even be an assumption. It might be the other aspect of that where they chose escapism. They chose to just have fun now and worry about it later. But the thing about it, the problem with that, have fun now and worry about it later, is that when later comes, you know, you're not, it's almost like, when later comes, it might just whoop your ass in a way that, you couldn't even predict or prepare for. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I don't even know how to what to tell you. It's just like I wouldn't advise that because the way we're going, especially society wise, um, there's not going to be as much open opportunity the same way it is now. Like the way we use the internet, the things that we have access to. Um, Again, with certain technology coming out, like robots and things like that taking jobs. Just that as an example alone. I'm not saying that to fear monger. I'm not saying that to. All I'm saying is think about that for a second. If the workforce is replaced by mechanical or technology labor and things like that, right? Mechanical or robotic labor, I don't know what they call it. But think about that. If you can't make your own money and the economy has to go because the United States is a business, and if you're outside the United States, in some way you'll be affected by this, but maybe in different ways. But for the most part, if you can't make your own money, that means that for the government to still have things be regulated, because there has to be some kind of exchange of currency, that means that they're going to have to issue you a check. And based upon the check that they issue you, it's going to come with stipulations. It's going to come with certain things that you either have to do, participate in, or it's going to come with a fuck ton of limitations and things like that. And so, again, the range of this and how intense it's going to be and the details, I can't say. But what I will say is that it won't be the same as it is now. So if you kind of lollygagging and just having fun, this is why I've been kind of saying that the whole idea, even with the concept of the age of Aquarius, is like what is going to happen is that if you think about the energy dynamic of Aquarius, right? Fixated air and things like that is Saturnian. So think of a Saturnian type of vibe. It's strict. It's about order. So to put order, there has to be restriction. So again, very restrictive type, it's going to be a very restrictive time. the internet was popping, right? The internet previous years, we was coming off the age of Pisces. So the internet was like this free range. And we now see how crazy and weird the internet has gotten to the point where, I mean, to the point where you're you know, you can't really even shield your children from getting into certain things on the internet. I mean, not to point out nobody, but like, what I'm saying, in the chat, what I'm saying, it's like you got younger children mixing in with, things and concepts that's way beyond their even comprehension sometimes, what I'm saying? And again, that has to be regulated. That has to be contained and things like that. So, that's the aspect that they're probably looking at things, and that's what we're going to see for the next couple coming years, is that intense restrictions and regulations on things that were once open and free, to a point that, um, again, you could debate, because all the conversations nowadays are about what's online and how online is affecting children, and is how online is affecting just people in general. So, we have to kind of just keep that type of thing in mind and understand that, okay, some serious restrictions are probably going to be coming in the next coming years, and especially in this time where the United States themselves are going through a Pluto return. So there's a whole infrastructure change that's happening, in which you can't really predict what the new rules are going to be. And whenever things change, there's the people who are in a position to, depending on your wealth, just straight up, depending on your wealth and your class, that's going to determine what resources you have available to you to adapt to the change. And the more resources you have, the faster you can adapt, and the more you can set up for yourself. But now, a lot of people aren't even in a position to be able to handle their own bills right now. So you got a lot of people who are in positions where they really don't have a lot to work with. So the solution to people on the ground level is, we got to come together and create a system, and that system is, again, a community, and a community is nothing more, nothing less than a network. And again, following that creative energy. Hold on. Yeah. Following that creative energy, right? A network and a system. I mean, I said creative energy. Following that Aquarian energy, it's like creating a system with that, within that community, for things to be able to be stabilized and function. And so with that can come more stability and more kind of autonomy, in terms of not having to rely on other government systems for being able to be sufficient, basically. You know what I'm saying? So it's just some things we have to work, we have to think about, not worry about. Because again, I'm not here to fear monger, and I don't look at life as something to I don't incite worry and stress, even though it is stressful to think. But the solution is more so, a matter of figuring out how we can come together and create systems that can work and be self-sufficient to a degree. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the thing about it is, even how the government interacts with different things, right? And not to claim like I know everything, but what I will say is this: what's a common theme and common trope is, if a system could be created that's sufficient, in some ways it's almost like how, you got to think about it like this. They're trying to keep their world built. They built a world, and they're trying to keep it running. So if you can build something within that world that helps that world to keep running, then basically you open the opportunity to be associated with, or to be kind of, almost like, I want to use the word respected, but that's not actually the word I'm looking for. It's like you open the door for there to be a mutual benefit, for that to be allowed to operate, basically. And even though the word allowed sounds crazy, but just to be real, I mean, they built this shit. They built it. So if you're creating within it, there's you got to think, like, from what I see, people who build things and they try to kind of go a little too militant, and a little too more too hurrah, and kind of don't contribute to the building or the regulation of the world. Those are the first organizations to be infiltrated and destroyed. It's just what it is. Now, what I'm saying is not to, again, I'm not even coming at it from a point of morality, but if you did want to make a stance on morality, then you have to build the system in which morality is an example. It's almost like being the change you want to see. That's a very deep concept, even though it's a cliche, but the cliche should be some of the hardest stuff to really keep in mind. But it's like you have to be the change you want to see. So with the system we build, let that be an example of how the world could look. And if we build it and make it sufficient enough and we allow it to operate in a way that looks like it's regulating, again, keep, a part or a key piece in the world that they already got going on, but just presenting itself as an alternative way that actually works better for the people involved in it, then not only will it be allowed and sanctioned, but it will also be supported and maybe even elevated to a degree. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's kind of talking more advanced. And I really don't want to talk too much about stuff like that because those are conversations that kind of require um, again, need to be happening behind closed doors, but just to give y'all an idea, because the truth of the matter is we already doing small forms of that. Like anybody online with a channel or a brand understands exactly what I'm talking about, even if you don't think you do. Because again, think about the people who have millions and millions of views. You might wonder, well, they ain't really talking about nothing. How come they got so much views and attention and things like that? Well, you got to think these are their networks. So the algorithm is going to be more catered to those who hold messages or recite things that are in the image of what they want to be promoted. It's just the way it is. And when I say they, I just mean the government, the individuals that run the world, and those who created these systems. So again, and what I'm saying is not so much about getting so wrapped up into selling out, because selling out, um, it's like you got to think. It's, it gets kind of deep. It gets it's not really that complicated though. It gets deep, but it's not really that complicated. It just is what it is. You know, everybody at some point is trying to find a way to feed themselves. So, but it's about the selling out part in the is kind of embedded in the morality of it. And it's like how you're going about it. It's not what you do, it's how you go about it. And so selling your soul, that's an aspect or concept that comes from, are you doing things that's true to you? You know what I'm saying? Are you doing what's true to you? That's spending a bunch of time and energy and focus into the things that aren't really you. That's selling your soul on a negative end. But if you're doing what's really you, and you even got it to the point where it supports your morality, and it supports your truth, and it uplifts the lives of others, then that's more so of a um that's a different aspect. That's you giving your energy to the world. That's you, what I'm saying? That's not necessarily, that's still selling your soul, but it's selling your soul in a way in which you're giving to the world in a more positive way, because the best thing you can do, and the only real thing to really do, is to be the best version of yourself. So selling your soul on a negative end is when you're not being the best version of yourself for the check. I'm gonna not be myself, because not being myself is what gets me paid. And it's like, that's the thing. We live in a world right now where there's certain things that they want to promote and certain things that they don't. And again, some people get lucky because what they are and who they are aligns with a lot of what they want to promote and what they want to be popular and things like that. And some people kind of get the short end of the stick and have to find more creative ways to get their own shit popping. You know what I'm saying? AKA everybody, like even everybody on this level, where we might not be the first people to be put on the front page of YouTube and things like that. But one thing about, when we talk about concepts like God and all possibilities, there is a way, and we just have to develop the will to kind of fight through that, cut through that, and that be the fight. That be the good fight. You know what I'm saying? The good fight is you being the best version of yourself, and finding a way to make that work. You know what I'm saying? And that's the good fight. But the bad fight is you just kind of submitting to what you think is going to get the check, or you submitting to what you think. Um, yeah, you submitting, basically sacrificing yourself for the sake of something somebody else created. Something somebody else told you should have been, or told you need to be. And things like that. And again, what I even presented as a concept might not even work all the way. The thing is, it's a matter of putting it into practice and figuring out how it can work. You know what I'm saying? Because that's all we can do. But in the age of Aquarius, that's kind of what it comes down to: communities and things like that. And what community can put together a nice system to make it sufficient enough to be respected and to continue to, to grow and flourish. And a lot of it is going to be about how self-sufficient can it be, because that's one of the things about the game too. People, no one's coming to save you type stuff, so just because you have a good idea or you think you're a good person doesn't mean you're going to be guaranteed a good life. uh, and that's kind of harsh to say, but the truth is, it's like you have to build it and make that work. So you have to do the best you can with who you really are and put it into motion, put it into action. But the thing is, the faster you put it out there and the faster you go through the trials and tribulations and failures, is the quicker you start to understand not only more about yourself, but you start to gain information and awareness on what's needed for it to work, you know, and that becomes the ongoing process. A lot of people scared to even start, and I'm talking about life and stuff, but that could be reduced all the way down to you in your own career and things like that. The quicker you get out there and put yourself on the center stage and say, okay, put it to test, the quicker you get able to see, okay, is this working? And if it don't work, again, you don't have to stop there. You could take yourself, gather it, take the information you got, add the criticisms to your flow, and adjust and build something new. And that's how you kind of manage and grow throughout life. um but we at a point right now where it's just like you just can't be scared. You just can't be scared. There's nothing gained from being in fear and not making a move. You know what I'm saying? um what they say, fortune favors the bold. So you got to get out there and see for yourself on if that idea can work. But um right now is the perfect time, and that's why I said it's a very stressed out shift going on, because there's going to be those who muster up the strength to take the risk, and there's going to be a lot of people who at the end of this transit uh kind of pass up on the opportunity because they were too busy either trying to think of a way to do it without actually doing it, you know, or they just chose to let the moment pass. And as things continue to develop again in the next 2 years, we not gonna have as much leeway and wiggle room to come up with something new than we do now. I mean, look at the alignments. Uranus is about to be in Gemini. Uranus is literally giving us the opportunity to be unique and find our own way of gaining that stability. But when it gets into Gemini now, it's still going to be flexible, right? But again, this is within that 2 year span I'm talking about, where there's also going to be an enormous amount of new laws and regulations that's going to make it more difficult to kind of maybe do what you're trying to do as far as it pertains to stability, as it pertains to you gaining, you having an exchange of value. Because right now the most important resources is kind of like in your individuality, but then it's going to be about how can you convey or communicate that. Now if you spent Uranus and Taurus not developing your unique style of what's value and what to be stable with, well, when it gets into Gemini, the way you communicated about it might not make enough sense for people to want to buy into your individuality, and so you'll be kind of casted aside where people don't really understand where you're coming from, and it's like, damn, okay, you know that's not gaining you enough traction to be considered unique and something innovative that people want to actually be a part of. People might actually start rebelling and opposing against your concepts just because you don't have enough stability or your own idea or practicality behind it. you know just small things like that. And then again, we're moving into a time where we're going to have Neptune in Aries and things like that. So Neptune in Aries, people going to war and fighting for what they believe in. But if you didn't spend enough time with Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces coming up with a way to build your dream might not stand the test of battle. It might not actually stand up at war. And so you might have to completely give birth to a new dream just based upon your dream just not being sufficient enough because you spent too much time in escapism. And the people who not actually investing into themselves, they're going to be forced to find the next person with a good enough idea to kind of cling or latch onto. And that's kind of how it always is for generations to generations to generations. It's always those who have the willpower to go off on their own idea and make a statement, make a claim, and then those who are too scared and kind of hold themselves back and then have to just settle for what's ever available. And hopefully somebody had a good enough idea that aligns enough with what they believe in to just associate themselves with and support. Now some people are in the role of just being supporters, and that's cool. But for the people who actually have ideas and have dreams and have goals and things like that, not to say if you're a supporter you don't have those things, but people who really had a unique voice that something in them was telling them to get it out, but they held back on it. Y'all might end up walking around with some regrets later on. And again, there's always time to speak up, but the thing about time is finite. Nothing lasts forever. So there's windows of opportunity, and sometimes people miss their windows. And it's not to say that they can't still pursue it and do what they do, but you know, nothing kind of hurts the spirit more than missing out on a window of opportunity, um, because it just makes things more difficult. But getting back to the moon and Sagittarius. So, with the Sagittarius stellium, like I was saying about faith, we have to put that faith alongside working. We can't just use faith as an excuse to, yeah, I'll do it later because I believe in myself, or I'll do it later because I have faith that it'll all work out. And yeah, it will all work out, but to say at the same time, it'll only work out for real, if you put the work in. When you say, it'll all work out, and you don't put effort in, basically what you're saying is whatever happens, I'm gonna settle for whatever is left, basically. So that's you basically getting the universe's leftovers in a sense. So it's never nothing you want, it's just a bunch of leftovers and scraps. And sometimes the universe might not even give you enough to be satisfied, aka full, if you're using that analogy. You know what I'm saying? Like eating leftovers and stuff, it's like it might not even be enough to satisfy your stomach and stuff. So you have to think about that. You want to put in the work so that you can make sure that you got the meal you want and that you're fully sufficient and fully satisfied after the end of the cycle and things like that. Now, yeah, we talked about a little bit the moon squaring Saturn. So having to learn how to, a lot of what I was saying kind of applies to this, having to learn how to work with or alongside your faith and belief. So what you believe in, if you really believe in yourself right now, you have to learn how to kind of get out of your feelings enough to stay consistent with the work necessary to go along with that faith and what you believe in. If you believe in that, why is you not working on that? I was saying that about think about delusion. When it comes to what makes you delusional is to think that you can achieve something that you're not willing to work for, to say that you believe you're able to do something that you're not actually putting effort towards actually making happen. That's when you are delusional, because it'll never happen. The only way you can look at something as being creativity or imagination that actually matters and is real is if you are putting in the work and effort to actually make that thing real. But if you're claiming that you want something and you got some kind of dream and you're not working towards it, well, yes, you are out of your mind, because it will never really come to fruition. Nothing will be handed to you. The quicker you understand that, the better life gets in general. And again, some people get lucky, some people get things that seemingly are handed to them, but the thing about it is, pay attention to how these people are able to adapt and hold on to those things, because it's very rare that somebody is able to be handed something that they never worked for and they're able to actually keep it. Sometimes the universe will do some crazy shit to you, like give you something without effort and work, and the thing is, people will get it but then lose it faster than they got it, just based upon them not having the ability to maintain that space when they get it, or they go through something so traumatic while they have it that they can't even enjoy it for what it is, and so they end up not even wanting it in the end. What I'm saying? It's crazy. What I'm saying? Like again, people who inherit certain things, and some people who, silver spoon, you really don't know what these people are going through. And people who reach a certain level of celebrity and things like that. Again, all social media show you is the good side and what you think you want. But you don't want those problems. You don't know what they be going through when they turn that phone off. You don't know what they be going through. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's crazy. Even some of these streamers and stuff like that. It's something interesting going on too, where you got a lot of young kids coming into a whole lot of money real young, and a lot of them don't know what to do with it. And that kind of has its own implications of its own consequences and things like that. It's interesting. You know what I'm saying? I've been paying attention to that because the streamer thing is kind of it's new enough. It's new, but what it's like, it's not new. It's been here for a while, but what is new is that these kids is really becoming millionaires and things like that so early on. And what you see them trying to do on stream, a lot of it is dope, but a lot of it also is questionable, as far as like some of the other streamers who kind of don't know what to do and kind of put themselves in compromising positions and things like that. But that's for a different live stream. um I'm just curious to see kind of how that's used as far as a psyop and things like that. But the moon is also, um, Mars is still 29 degrees Cancer. We can kind of say it's not really trining, but thing is, Mars is preparing itself for the center stage. I think it's going to be in Leo probably tomorrow, but Mars is preparing itself for the center stage. So this is a form of showcasing our passions while exposing our motivations and true intentions or frustrations in the process. So you need to really be mindful about how you're presenting your passions, because one thing about this energy, Mars is going to be having kind of a tough time. Mars is currently actually going through a lot. Um, so Mars is going to do this thing where it's going to be progressing through Leo, and then it's going to retrograde in December back into Cancer by February. So the thing about it is, Mars is kind of in between awake and sleep. It falls in Cancer, so it has a little bit of a difficult time, right? But we just got out of that, so Mars is kind of waking up, but it's almost like able to make a first impression. So how they say your first impression is one of the most important things, that we have to keep that in mind with Mars, because the way we can go about Mars right now, Mars being in Leo, think about the principles of Leo, center stage and needing attention. So let's say you're trying to express your passions, but you're all about seeking validation. And you still haven't adapted to the ideology of, oh, let me have more of a delayed gratification. Let me work for what I earn, and let me do what I do because this is authentically me. If your passions and your motivations and intentions are not genuine, what'll happen is, um, one thing about Mars and Leo, there's a spotlight that shines on those intentions, and they will be seen and exposed on whether or not they're genuine or not. So if the driving force for what you're trying to do and achieve is rooted in just trying to seek the validation or gain the attention, um, this might be this might negatively impact the way you are seen when it comes to that energy and that light. And as a result, is going to make it very difficult for you later on. It could blemish your status to a degree, you know what I'm saying? Because this energy is going to inconjunct Pluto, which is making its way into Aquarius very soon. And that is going to be setting off this kind of new age, is when Pluto settles itself forward in Aquarius. So you're going to be dealing with that massive opposition with Mars, and that's going to impact how you even are able to navigate your network and things like that, because people are going to be knowing you from, oh, you that individual that was trying to do things or had intentions and had motivations that were rooted in just trying to seek validation. And the thing is too, those who are only using validation and attention as their driving force won't even have the drive to go the distance that's necessary for Mars to really thrive. Because like I said before, Mars is trying to break through. So it's presenting itself, it's showcasing its new shit, but it's gonna go back, and when it does that retrograde motion back in Cancer, that should be trying to rest and prepare itself for the real stage. Because it's almost like, if you were to think of and not for those who do acting, right? They go on an audition, right? And if they do good, they get a call back. So this is like that. You want to make sure that you get the call back, because let's say you go through this energy and you got your passions and the intentions and motivations rooted in the wrong things like attention and validation, well, how you present yourself, you might not give a good first impression. And what'll happen is during that retrograde time, you're gonna be waiting on that callback. And that type of shit can drive you insane, basically drive you to maybe do more destructive things, maybe hate on others and do things that's gonna waste time when you could just be developing your craft and getting better at what you do, right? And going on another audition when the time is right and it goes back direct. But what's going to happen is a lot of people are, uh, I'm not going to say a lot of people are, but like that's the kind of planting bad seeds aspect of that energy. But the people who have genuine passions, are authentic in their expression of these things, and their driving force is something way deeper than just trying to get attention. Those people are going to be the ones who are able to kind of showcase themselves in a way that makes others say, damn, okay, yeah, let me give them a call back. And those opportunities, that retrograde period for Mars is more so going to be you gaining, again, more information on what you do, you building up the courage to do it even better, and then boom, you're going to be able to pop out. And I think it's going to be in February 24th. So that's going to be Pisces season, right in time for spring. You got that trine. And so there's going to be a certain sentiment or sentimental aspect or an emotional connection, deep, able, what I'm saying, a real deep emotional alignment, basically, a gift you're going to have on an emotional level to really hammer it home and kind of, do some very powerful things with Mars. But it all, again, this is why I look at astrology as you got to look at it in progression. What how is now impacting me later, what I'm saying, kind of aspect. It'll help you kind of look at things as you're moving. That's why we came up with stuff like the astronumerology day star planner that helps you kind of look and see how these things and plan your year based upon the different transits and all these different things, so on and so forth. Now, yeah, so that's what's going to be going on with Mars. So right now, Mars is 29 degrees. It will be going into Leo, I think, tomorrow. So, and I'll be doing a separate live stream on that as well. Now, what else? The moon is going to be, I think that's about it, actually. Oh, yeah, moon in conjuncting. No, did I say the moon was, yeah, moon in conjuncting Uranus. So I think I said it was uncomfortable, but it's more so misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding between your uniqueness and your individuality. So feeling like you don't really understand um, the meaning or reasoning behind why you're going through what you're going through and how that relates to your individual path and ideology and things like that. And speaking of path, we still have Chiron in the North Node in um, Aries. So that is a trine. So there is a gift to kind of understand some aspects of your spiritual path. But the thing about Sagittarius we have to keep in mind too is kind of where your perspective is, because this is energy that's dealing with your moral system. So you really do got to check in with your own morality and ask yourself, really, are you looking at, what is the bigger picture for you? And you need to answer those questions for yourself. Um, but there's also a gift to understand past mistakes on a higher level. So, understanding, being able to really get into the inner workings of what those mistakes mean to you and what you might have learned from them. Hopefully you learn something, and what you learn is enough to kind of put you on the right track as far as, how do I get better at this? Um, because that's kind of the key. You just want to make sure you get better every day. You wake up and you make the decision to get better. And again, some days going to be easier than others, but the effort is what matters nonetheless. Um, yeah, so that's the big thing, So keep in mind, this is the time where you have that decision between, are you going to expand, aka allow yourself to get better and deal with some of these aspects and face them head on, and use optimism to kind of look at the brighter side and keep the bigger picture in mind as you approach these things, or are you going to let kind of the work and the intensity of what's going on and what might be required of you to lessen you and make you feel like you need to escape and hide, because unfortunately, even if you hide, you can't really escape reality. That's just the thing about it. You can't really escape reality. So you're gonna have to get with the get with the program one way or another. So you might as well put your best foot forward and make it work, make it happen. Um, and just kind of speaking on the full moon a little bit more. The full moon gonna be in Taurus. So how does this relate to us getting to Taurus? This is kind of the in conjunction towards Taurus energy. So this is really where um old habits can either die or be set in stone. And you want old, outdated mentalities and mindsets to die here. This needs to be that light inspiration at the end of the tunnel that gives you enough hope and faith that, you know what, it's worth putting in the effort to get rid of and let go of the things that no longer serve me. But again, the bad seeds, planting bad seeds is you succumbing to, you know what, I can't, this makes me feel good. So I'm just going to do this. And it's going to be difficult to fight, especially being next to Venus, because the first thing we're going to want to do is just what makes us feel good. But after this, we go through the moon in Capricorn, which will be another opportunity to get more serious and solidify and build on things. But right here could be a nice head start. So, all in all, though, I appreciate everybody for coming through. And, yeah, that's what's going on. If you're looking to get a one-on-one consultation with me, you can hit me up at 717conference.info@gmail.com or hit me up on Instagram, Davebeyondtv. Just send me a DM and I will get to you as soon as possible. Yeah, much love, and I will catch y'all on the next one. And also be on the lookout because I think tomorrow I'm gonna go ahead and drop videos on Mercury and Sagittarius and Mars and Leo. So that's gonna be independent videos. And then we're gonna pick up with uh the planetary psychology. I'm gonna go live on Mars Day, and we're gonna break down Mars this time. If you didn't catch it, I went in on Venus as far as planetary psychology a few days ago. So go ahead, check that video out. Give this one and that one a thumbs up and a like and subscribe. Oh, I said it, thumbs up. Yeah, that is a like. Subscribe and share it with somebody you know who could use it. And I'll catch you on the next one.